Now, Defence Minister Richard Marles has flown to Japan at the moment to meet key defence and security figures. He travelled from Singapore after attending that Shangri-La Defence Dialogue summit where he met with China's Defence Minister, and says the meeting was an important first step in improving communication with China. Now, he'll meet his Japanese counterpart today and is calling on stronger military ties between the two nations. This will include a push for more military exercises with Japan. Joining me now to discuss the Minister's Asian Odyssey is former Australia-China Council scholar Andrew Phelan. Andrew, good to have you on the program. The Albanese government, they're receiving praise for what occurred in Singapore. Was it such a groundbreaking effort by Richard Marles?
Well, it was a bilateral meeting on the side of a multilateral meeting, Chris. So Scott Morrison met with Xi Jinping briefly on the side of the G20 meeting in Japan in 2019. And, my boss used to say at the Shangri-La, or the Shang as we call it, it's kind of hard not to run into people when you're stuck in the same location for 3 days, right? So, we could take it as a positive that this meeting happened, but the conventional wisdom says it's good to talk. And it is, and it isn't, depending on the outcome. We'll have to wait and see. I would be paying more attention if I were the media on General Wei's speech and China's trajectory than I would be on talk of change in tone, talk of respect and all these sorts of things, which I think are distractions. Yeah,
they weren't backing off. That was the tone of their address. They weren't backing off, and maybe we should be paying more attention.
Right, and I think their trajectory, their grand plan, as it were, is on a collision course with the US. At some point, the friction's going to get even more, as we've seen with these unfortunate incidents with Chinese jet planes intersecting ours.
I couldn't agree more. Now, Don Farrell, the Trade Minister, said to us that he was trying to get a meeting with the Trade Minister when they meet at the World Trade Conference in Geneva. We've heard this afternoon that he failed to do that. He's got an unenviable job, I agree. Will he get his meeting this year, do you think?
It's a flip side of the point that I just made. He wasn't able to synchronise the diaries, as it were, but China's got bigger fish to fry. They're not so worried about Australia's trade beefs or Australian beef in Geneva. There's been a lot of talk more broadly about sourcing and strategic sourcing. I'll give you an example. OmniScan, which is the contrast media that's used for CT scans, is made in Shanghai for the whole wide world, and radiology practices are running out of it in Australia and the US and so on. That's just one example. Apple has moved all of its manufacturing out of China. The lobbying has started around that WTO meeting with Henry Wang Huiyao, who's been writing in Bloomberg and Nikkei about how we need to have an open system. But what he's really saying is we don't want the West to decouple from China. We don't want the West to pack up its manufacturing and move out. We don't want to see reshoring. There's a new term running around called friendshoring, where you're taking your supply chain to a country that's not a strategic competitor with you. That's what China's focusing on in Geneva, not Australia.
OK. Finally, on the Port of Darwin, do we need another review? I know Anthony Albanese is review mad. He's got 54 of them planned. But do we need a review? We've only just had one.
Well, I was opposed to it from the get-go, but it's emerged recently that a US Navy ship was approached by a swarm of drones. Now, China is the global king in merchant marine. 40% of the world's new ships are made in China. Has 2 huge shipping lines, ports around the world. It's also the king of drones, drone making. And so when they're looking at future technologies that might be deployed in times of war, and China has a doctrine called civil-military fusion, then these are the things we need to anticipate in the future. A US Navy ship was swarmed by this fleet of drones, and that's only just become unclassified or been released under Freedom of Information Act in the US. So they're the things we need to worry about for the future. So I don't think we need a review. I say Darwin, nationalise the port, sooner the better.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more. Andrew Phelan, great to get your insight. Thank you.
Always, Chris. Cheers.